Hi, I'm Maribel Aber from M&A.TV, and I'm here with René-Pierre Azria. He is the president and CEO of Tegris Advisors. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
René, talk a little bit about your firm.
The firm was started about 3 years ago. It's a financial advisory firm. We provide mergers and acquisition services, and more generally, we provide financial advisory services.
Now, you're participating in contributing to the Dealmaker book, and one of the interesting quotes you had, if I'll read it back to you, is, "Being fired by a Frenchman is one thing, but you can't be fired by a German." Can you expand on that a little bit?
Oh, well, it's an anecdote that relates to a transaction I did a number of years ago. An American company bought a French company and had to implement a plan by which a number of workers were going to be let go. And it's a ritual to let go of people in France. It's a very precise ritual. And we had agreed how it had to be done. Unfortunately, at the last minute, the American company brought in a personnel manager from Germany. And the French people of the acquired company called me and said, it cannot be done that way. You know, they have to have a French HR manager. We cannot be fired by a German person. It cannot be done. And indeed, the Americans persisted in having a German HR manager, and it did not work. Culturally, it was just demeaning. And it's just one of the funny cultural traits that within Europe you have to respect certain things, and in that particular case it was a big cultural mistake. Being fired by an American HR person or by a Frenchman was okay, but not by a German person.
Not by a German. Now, you also mentioned that you really have to get it done within 30 to 60 days. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yes, it's very clear that when a company is acquired, there has to be a change of culture and a change of allegiances, and that has to happen within 30 to 60 days. Otherwise, a lot of the goodwill that can be developed within the acquired company is dissipated and replaced with distrust and other ill feelings. One could think that it could be done within a year, within 6 months. The reality is that we found by experience that it's a much shorter period of time.
Now, switching gears a little bit, we are coming on the anniversary of the financial crisis of 2008.
Yes.
In your opinion, do you think this crisis is over?
No, I think it has not been well understood, and the cures for the ills have not been developed properly. And I think we are unfortunately on the verge of a new financial crisis, which is developing both in Europe and in the United States. This time not for economic reasons, but for political reasons. We have a double instability in the States and in Europe, and it is being felt very deeply and very brusquely in the financial markets. So unfortunately, I'm afraid that we are witnessing today in the economy the ripples of a new financial crisis.
Can you walk us through maybe some significant challenges that we'll have to go through?
Sure. One of the challenges that we are going through at the moment is the fact that the banks have lost a stable core group of shareholders, in the sense that insurance companies who used to provide permanent capital have been asked by the regulators to disinvest risky assets. Well, guess what is risky? Banks are risky. And so banks cannot rely on insurers to invest in them. At the same time, insurers cannot invest in bonds anymore because bonds are risky. And so suddenly there are no investors left. Banks and insurers used to be the long-term investors. There are no investors left in the equity markets and in the bond markets, which is why the regulators have created an extraordinary volatility in both the bond markets and the equity markets at a time when we need stability. So we're going through this, and that's what we see happening in the sovereign bond markets, and what we see happening in the fact that the banking system is not withstanding the pressure of the downgrades in the sovereign bond markets. That's just the beginning of a major collapse unless the politicians understand what the regulators are really doing, which is undoing 50 years of financial policy.
Now, in terms of best practices, you spoke earlier at one of the panels. I'm interested to understand what your thoughts are on the BRIC countries and the opportunities there, because you did talk about that a little bit.
Yes, I think a lot has been talked about and said about the BRIC countries. One point I was making earlier, though, is that the big bargains of today are actually to be found in the Western economies, and the very low valuations are to be found today in the blue chips of the United States and of Europe, and of Japan as well, without the risks of the unknown and the risks of the lesser tried legal and tax frameworks of the BRIC countries. And that was the point I was making, which is that, of course, at a time when the risks are so high, the valuations are so low, and therefore there are less candidates to go and invest at these very low valuations.
So that being said, what do you think the single most important thing is that buyers should be aware of?
Probably debt. Probably debt. This is a market where there is no margin for error, and therefore only equity-rich buyers can really risk investing.
Well, we are pleased to have you here with us as a guest of M&A Advisor, and I'm interested to hear kind of, how important is it for the voice of M&A Advisor, this community, how important is it for it to be heard or to be part of this community?
I think it is. I think M&A advisors in general are people who spend a lot of time thinking. They are not trading in exotic instruments, and their business is about valuation, long-term valuation of assets. Therefore, they have a little bit of views. They have views which are a bit different from actors who look at immediate valuations of financial instruments. And therefore, we probably have a larger understanding, a wider understanding of what is hitting the financial industry and what is hitting various categories of assets around the world at the same time. It would be interesting to have more of a voice on the political basis. We do not have a voice at all at the moment. I think the voice belongs to the traders and to the people who man the exchanges.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
It's
really
a pleasure.
appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
You're watching M&A.TV. Join the leaders.